Alrighty, so hi everyone. I am Chloe Burdett. I am a junior at the College of Wooster, and I am here with Dr. Singh, Assistant Professor of Communication Studies. I just want to do a little background on Dr. Singh while we're here. Dr. Singh's area of study and specialty is political rhetoric, which are the words and symbols by which leaders and communities persuade one another. Her research examines ideologies and structures of power and messages such as speeches, news texts, and visual images. She is particularly interested in the politics and images of South and Southeast Asia and the role of corporations in economic logic in public life. Dr. Singh has been at Wooster for 4 years since August of 2016. So welcome. Thanks for being with me today.
No, thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I have a few questions for you that we can kind of go through, trying to demonstrate Wooster and kind of show what we've got going on here, especially while we're at home, not doing much, just kind of living our lives, trying to keep ourselves busy. All right, so the first question I have today is, what areas of focus have you seen your students in your department pursue in any type of way, whether that's during college or after college, whatever you feel like is necessary?
Okay, so during college, our department is a little interesting. I know that often in majors, and I know that this is the case when I was an undergraduate as well, the idea is that you pick a department, you pick a major, and then within that you pick a particular track, right? You specialize in one thing. And we do have tracks or sub areas in communication studies in our department too, but we don't have students pick just one path within the department and pursue that single thing. We ask them to take courses from across the 4 different sub areas that our department offers. And so those sub areas are, rhetoric and politics, right? So just as you said so nicely at the beginning, Chloe, that's what I study, right? So the use of language to persuade, often in political settings. So we have students take courses in argumentation, rhetoric and civic engagement, communication and social protest. We have a track or a bucket really called communication and culture, where we have students study aspects of identity rooted in formations of communities, right? So intercultural communication, environmental communication, globalization. There's a bucket in relational communication, where we study how people in families, in doctor-patient settings, in health comm, how do they talk to each other, what are the power dynamics in those situations. And then, of course, we're communication, so media studies, right? Taking courses in media, culture, and society, for example. And as I mentioned, rather than have students pick just one, right? Oh, so I'm a media studies person within comm, or I'm a relational comm person, we have them take courses from all these sub areas, because communication studies is a wide-ranging and diverse discipline, and we want to graduate people who know something about everything in communication studies, right? I mean, I'm sure you can imagine, Chloe, that when you graduate with a degree that says communication studies, people are going to expect that you know something about communication between parents and their children, but also between doctors and nurses, so interpersonal comm. They're probably also going to expect that you know something about the structure of media industries, right? Or creating visual messages. Perhaps you're going to be the content coordinator for a company, for example, right? Or how do you write posts, for example, for a wide audience? They're going to expect that you know about methods of surveying and argumentation and persuasion. So within their time at college over here in Worcester, communication studies majors really need to sample from, in our department, a wide range of sub areas. And afterwards, what they go on to do, there's absolutely no limit, because it's the same idea that as a communication studies major, you can do absolutely anything. Right? So you can be, certainly the classical ideas of, oh, you can be a speechwriter. Yes, okay, fine, you can be a speechwriter. But you can also you can work in an organization, you can handle campaigns for a company, for example, you can work in public policy. For example, we have a whole course in communicating public policy, right? Where you can write materials and policy briefs. You can be a teacher, you can be a graduate student, you can be a professor, you can be a social worker, right? There are very few situations where the ability to look at a message and to adapt that message to the audience and the setting and the moment that's called for is not relevant. So our majors do absolutely everything.
Exactly. And on that same topic of, the possibilities are kind of endless when it comes to communication majors, do you have any, you know, examples of internships or anything that students,
Yeah.
had while they were in school or, after school or whatever that you could talk about?
Absolutely. So we've had students who've done a range of things. So just for example, just last summer, we had a student who interned at NBC. And I remember we were all laughing with him and saying that his next step would be to star in 30 Rock, right, as well, since that's where it was set. And I think what's valuable about the kinds of experiences that students get outside of Worcester is all the mentoring they get from the alum who come back while they're here as well, right? So for example, just in January this year, we had two different alum who came back, one a news anchor for NBC4 in Columbus, Ohio, another professor actually of rhetoric at Florida State University. And they gave talks to the students, they mentored. In fact, one of them sat with a current senior IS student and talked with her about her project on collective memory and civil rights. And I think that those experiences are important too, right? That certainly you get to do internships while you are here, but you also get to meet with our alum who not only help you with IS, but help you with thinking about your own future career, right, after you leave Worcester as well. So that is something that students find incredibly useful.
Awesome. Yeah. So especially like even coming from my own, personal experience, I've done things in media or things that have to do with, talking to an audience or somehow communicating with a certain group when it
Yeah.
comes to even things such as like a sports internship that I had last summer and things like that, where
Mhm.
you're kind of, talking to an audience and you're making sure that their experience, let's say at like a baseball, ballpark is um,
Yeah.
fun and enjoyable. So I think it speaks to the fact that communication majors or minors at the College of Worcester kind of have no limit to where they can end up with that degree. So I think it's awesome that we were able to talk about that.
Mhm.
So then more on that, what is your favorite class to teach at Worcester? You probably have an example for me.
I do. I'm not going to cop out and say, oh, they're all my favorite. That goes against the meaning of the word favorite, I think, somewhat.
Exactly. You have a
Um,
favorite.
yeah, no, the value of words, very important in comm studies. Well, currently, I've just created a new course, and right now it's my new favorite to teach, called Asian Political Rhetoric. And it's a course where we examine how public figures, politicians, but also activists and social movement leaders across Asian countries use communication to address issues of public concern, right? So we've studied, let me think, we've studied how leaders in Asia negotiate the intersections of their religion and their gender, as and their family dynasty, because many of Asia's leaders have been women who are the daughters or widows of former male leaders, right? So how do they stand up there and say, hi, I'm my own person, but I'm also drawing on the authority of my father who came before me. So we studied leaders like Megawati Sukarno Putri of Indonesia, Aung San Suu Kyi of Myanmar, right? We've studied how public figures like the Dalai Lama and Mahatma Gandhi use principles of nonviolence to struggle against occupiers or to advocate for oppressed communities. And I like teaching this class because, to be perfectly honest, first, it's an opportunity for me to bring my own research into the classroom, as you mentioned so nicely, Chloe, in your introduction. I study the political rhetoric of South and Southeast Asia. So that's one reason I like teaching it. But I think also I like it. It's a class that students respond well to because they get to encounter contexts that are different from what they might usually be exposed to, particularly if they're students from the United States. But, it's also a course that students from Asia want to take. Right now, we're teaching online, and I'm working across time zones that span Japan, Korea, and China because I've got students who've gone home there as well. So students from Asia take the class too, and they also find themselves learning about their own country and other countries in Asia. But I think it's more than that. I think it's more than just I get to learn about a different context, although that's important. It's a course that always has to keep up with the news. and it reflects what's happening in the world outside. So at the beginning of this semester, for example, the International Court of Justice was hearing a case in which several countries charged Myanmar with genocide against its minority Rohingya Muslim population. So, in class, we examined the arguments made by the spokesperson for Myanmar, right, as she spoke in defense of her country's actions, right? And that meant as a class, we asked questions. What's the history here? Right, with this particular community in Myanmar. Who is this speaker, Aung San Suu Kyi? How has what she said before on the issue of peace, for example, because she's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, how has that colored and affected audiences' perceptions of what they want her to say, right, when she stands up and defends her country against genocide? And in fact, this week, the students got to choose the topic that we study, and they wanted to study what countries in Asia think about the United States within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? What are these intercultural, in a sense, perceptions? And that's what we're going to be talking about later this week. That's why I like teaching the course. It's something that gives students a new set of context to look at, but it also is something that really talks to and is a reflection of engaging with what's happening in the world right now around them.
And then on the same note, are there any classes that you've taught where alumni or people come back and they say, this was my favorite course. I'm excited that we can talk about it again, things like that, if there's a specific one that you teach?
Well, so I've only been here 4 years, so
yeah.
I don't yet have courses where alum come back to teach in my course, but I can point out that that does happen in other courses in our department, right? So for example, just last semester, Professor Bostrov's course on environmental communication did have an alum of the program who works at the World Resources Institute to come back and talk about her experiences there and how her experiences working at the World Resources Institute provided some information that was helpful and some perspectives helpful for students in the environmental comm class as well, right? And I hope that as students graduate from Asian political rhetoric this semester, next semester they're going to come back and say, this was my favorite class. I'm so grateful I took it. And that they can share their experiences in the class as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to go on a little bit of like a silly route here.
Oh my.
Yeah. So
oh my.
Get ready. But what is the most embarrassing moment that you've had in the classroom thus far?
Okay. Let me gauge my audience here a little bit and think about the appropriateness of this response. Well, Chloe, you've had me in class, so you know that I cannot sit still.
Yes.
And I need to do a lot of this, as we know, right? Leaning against the wall, up against a table, listening, a lot of movement, a lot of this. And earlier this semester, I was teaching in 202 in Richard, so it's upstairs.
Yep.
And it had been a time of the semester where colleagues had been telling me that they had had bats in their attic, right, in their homes. And of course, I'm from Singapore, and that is a foreign concept to me of having an attic or animals in it. So I'm teaching, I'm leaning against a table, and I'm talking to our Asian political rhetoric class, and I can hear squeaking. So I stop. I say, oh my goodness, everyone, I think, because we're at the top floor of the building, oh dear, I think, okay, can anyone hear an animal? So we stop. Nope, nothing at all. Oh dear, never mind. So I gather myself and I go on and teach, keep talking again, leaning against that table. And again, there is more squeaking. And so this happens 3 or 4 times. And it really stops the flow of the class. And everyone's wondering, okay, we're not quite sure what's going on. She keeps stopping, making us listen to silence until finally one venerable senior raises her hand, sort of goes, Professor Singh? I said, yes, what? I think it's you. I said, excuse me? She said, you're leaning against that table and you're talking so much like this that you're shaking the table and it's making a squeaking sound.
Oh my God.
It's you. And just the inability to respond to that. And I just sort of said, oh, such certainly. And gather the tattered shreds of my dignity and move on. So I suppose I would say from that, for listeners out there, professors at Worcester are very enthusiastic.
Yes, yeah.
Involved. But yes, that was a moment this semester where I thought, oh, okay, that was awkward.
That is so funny. You were so into it that you didn't even realize. You were making the sounds of a bat. You were maybe a mouse even. That is so funny.
This is probably why I should have taken it more seriously when a student evaluation of my teaching one year said, oh, suggestions to improve the professor's teaching, and this earnest student said, perhaps less coffee in the morning.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Oh my gosh. I know I had you for a 9 a.m. class, and of course 9 a.m. for me is absolutely ridiculously early, just for me in general, as it probably is for a lot of college students just personally. And you were always so peppy and so like excited, and I was like, I need whatever she's having in the morning. Because I'm definitely not meeting your expectation of
well, now we realize that there's probably a middle point to be a middle ground somewhere there between that, right? So less coffee, I can do that.
You know what, that's okay. Caffeine's great. You know what? We can't fault the caffeine here. All right, so that's all I have, but we can totally cut this out. I just wanted to know if you wanted to talk about the dairy farmer story, because I kind of want to hear about it, because it's kind of funny.
Honestly, it was, the reason I remember it is because it was my very first semester here, and I tend to have I have a tendency to incorporate idioms from an older era into my speech, just because I grew up hearing all those things at home. And so I was talking with a student in 111 in our intro course, who wanted to just get some tips on how to study better for the class and do well, all these good things that students should talk to professors about in office hours. So we laid out some study strategies, and I remember wanting to make this point to the student that, talking is one thing, but we can talk and talk and talk, but you actually have to commit to making these changes. And I said, well, we can talk and talk until the cows come home, but until the work gets done. And the student just sort of went, yes, yes, absolutely. And I must have been, just as many of us experience, in that frame of mind where you've used a word or you've used a phrase and then you can't help saying it over and over again, right? And so I think I must have said it again later in the conversation, again, like, well, we can talk until the cows come home, but unless the work gets done. And all right, fine, we were done. She left to go, and just as she left, she turned around in the threshold of the door and said, Professor Singh, can I ask you something? Because I said, yeah, it's just been on my mind. It's like, yeah, sure. How did you know I was a dairy farmer?
Oh my gosh.
I looked at her and said, I'm sorry, what's happening right now? And she said, well, it's just that you kept talking about cows and that expression, like that makes so much sense. And did you know that I work on a dairy farm? And you were, and I thought, oh wow, okay, well, I'm in the Midwest, right?
Yes, you are.
This is a thing. And I said, no, I absolutely did not know. I'm not psychic. I just used old-fashioned idioms in my speech. And she said, oh, okay, cool. And she left.
That is so awesome. Yeah, that's definitely when you're in the Midwest, when you've got a few people that are dairy farmers.
Yep. So just having to really rethink how some of the phrases I use might actually not be metaphors for some people.
So funny. Yeah, I'm sure you've never had anybody say, yeah, I'm a dairy farmer, yes.
Nope. So now, unfortunately, I cannot not use that expression all the time.
Oh, no, I would use it excessively.
I'm hoping I'll land on another dairy farmer.
Yes. You could use the one, when pigs fly. Maybe somebody will.
Perhaps, right?
Yeah, if somebody else wants to farm.
Certainly, if you could just email me a list of suggested pastoral and farm-based metaphors.
Yes, I'll definitely let you know. Exactly. Awesome. So that's all the questions that I have for you today. I'm so excited that I was able to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a while. I didn't have a class.
I know. It was good to see you.
Sure. last semester, so I was sad I wasn't able to see like many of my
I know.
professors. So it's been awesome to be able to have this opportunity. So I'm glad that we were able to meet, and I'm glad that we're able to show upcoming students kind of what Wooster and communication studies is all about. So
Absolutely. Come to us. We're very
yes, it's a great area of study. I really love it. So that's why I'm, still doing it. So
excellent. Excellent. Well, it was great talking to you, Chloe.
yes. Have a great one.